My name is Ross Logan. I'm a junior here at the UO and a psychology major, and I'm also a resident assistant here in the residence halls. On behalf of the University Housing, I would like to welcome you to the Ramey Room at Carson and for attending tonight's panel, the Community Conversation panel titled Coming Out in America, Coming Out at Oregon. The Community Conversation series is a Living Learning Institute initiative of University Housing. These panel discussions are co-produced by the students and student staff of the Oregon Think Tank and Oregon Brain Trust, two undergraduate academic programs here in the residence halls. Tonight's panel was conceived by the students of the Oregon Think Tank, who meet weekly at Tuesdays at 5 p.m. in the Collier Lounge of the Hamilton Complex. The Oregon Think Tank is open to all students, and we are always looking for new ideas and would value your opinion. So come if you would like to. I would also wish to acknowledge our co-sponsors, the Robert D. Clark Honors College, the Oregon Humanities Center, and the Undergraduate Studies, who have collaborated with University Housing for the past 6 years to make this series possible. Finally, you should have found a comment card on your seat when you entered the room, and we would value your feedback about tonight's panel. So if you could please take a moment to fill out the card, we would appreciate it very much. Our panel should conclude around 9 p.m., and the last 30 minutes will be reserved for questions from the audience. At this time, I would like to introduce one member of our panel tonight. Kat McGraw is the program coordinator for the LGBT Education Support Services program. She's in her second year as part of the Office of Student Life team. So yes, tonight's panel will be online as part of our community conversation, so you can go and look for it online if you want to see it again. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ross. I wanted to say thank you to University Housing for hosting a Bridges panel. The Bridges program runs out of the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Education Support Services program, which is a functional unit of the Office of Student Life. We do two main educational outreach programs. One of them is the Queer Ally Coalition, which is the University of Oregon's safe space effort on campus. And we also do Bridges. We offer two different panels through Bridges. One is a Guess the Straight panel, where folks have an opportunity through a game show style panel to guess people's sexual orientations and gender identities, and then to have a conversation about stereotypes and how they're useful and how they're harmful, things like that. If you would like to be a panelist, you can email us at bridges1@uoregon.edu. It's just a 15 minute to half an hour long training, and then you get to be a panelist after you've seen one of our panels. So being here tonight, you already have one of those requirements down. So we would love to see anybody come and be a panelist. Tonight you will have an opportunity to ask any questions. These are some of our most well-trained, amazing panelists who have been on a lot of panels. So they're not shy, and they're happy to answer any of your questions. If at any time they're not able to or not comfortable answering a question for some reason, then I'll field that question. So what we'd like to do first is have people say their names, their year in school, what they're studying, and their hometown, and that's it for now.
I am Holly. I'm a senior. Last term, actually, in educational studies, elementary special ed. What else is this supposed to say? Okay. Hey.
My name is Jen French. I actually graduated from the U of O last year, and I currently work at the Knight Library as a staff member. When I was in school, I studied general science, focusing on biology, chemistry, and anthropology. I also did a business minor, and I am originally from Beaverton, Oregon.
I'm Lexi. I'm a junior here at the University of Oregon. I'm studying education as well, elementary ed and special education. And my hometown is Moscow, Idaho.
I'm Ross Logan. I'm a junior here at the UO. I'm studying psychology, and I'm originally from Boulder, Colorado.
My name is Stacy Maddox, and I'm a senior. I'm from a town called Nehalem. It's 200 people on the coast, and my major is women and gender studies, and my minor is psych.
Excellent. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. What we're going to do next is have each of the panelists share either a coming out story around their sexual orientation or around their gender identity. So any end of the panel can start.
I'll go. I didn't come out completely in high school, but I remember the first time I told someone in high school. It was my best friend, and it was my junior year, and we were on swim team together, and I played a lot of sports, so that was one of the biggest hesitances, just like people being weird about like playing sports with me or locker rooms or whatever, particularly swim team since you're like half naked all the time. So I remember emailing her and being like, I have to tell you something. I hope you're not upset. I hope we can still be friends and all of this stuff. And after like 8 beat around the bush emails, I was finally like, oh, by the way, I'm gay. And then she just like wrote back and she's like, you know what? It's totally cool. If you join the swim team to look at the hot girls, I mean, I joined it for the hot guys. It's fine. And it was like not at all what I was expecting. And like from then on, she was a total ally, and I could always talk to her about people I liked and just like anything. So that's my coming out story. One of them.
Let's see. In high school, I came out my sophomore year in high school to a lot of people who felt like they already knew. But for coming out for me was more of a personal struggle because it was something that I was uncomfortable with at the time. So, but what kind of pushed me into that is that there was this guy at my high school who I didn't know his name. I never really saw him, but as I continued to see him throughout the day, I would tell myself, well, if I look at him 3 or 4 times today, then maybe I'm looking at him for a different reason. And over the course of a couple of months, I started to progress into, well, maybe I'm gay. So, but the rest of my coming out story, there really wasn't a whole lot of struggle. The only confrontation I had was with my parents, the big sit-down meeting with your parents, except it was kind of backwards than everyone else's. My parents sat me down and they said, Ross, we just want to let you know, we know you're gay, we've known since you were 5, and we're totally okay with it. So, surprisingly, that was actually hurtful for me that they said that. By that time, I was totally comfortable with it, but I felt like they were taking a secret from me, forcibly taking a secret that maybe I wasn't ready to share. And it took some time, but now with who I am today, I really appreciate the fact that they did that.
My coming out story, I was in love with my best friend in high school and never liked guys, but I did date a girl. I was track team captain and she was my little co-captain in high school, but it didn't really pan out. So I guess I came out to myself in high school, but I kind of just didn't see any dating opportunities. In college, I came out to my parents, and they were both like, yeah, we knew. So I was expecting a big, confrontation or something, and I had a lot of build-up, and when I told them, and they were like, yeah, we got that, I was kind of like, that's it? So, but I am pretty lucky in the sense that they were very supportive. So, and then I think coming out for me was just a process a little bit all the time. Like an elderly neighbor asking me if I was ever going to get married, and I said, not until it's legal. And then she said, oh, you always wear a stinker. And so I guess a little bit all the time, and, I guess that's it.
So for one of my coming out stories, I guess, with my family, I decided to tell my dad and my mom and my brother all separately, even though they live in the same house. Just made sure to do it at their own times. And my dad had a reaction where he's like, you're my daughter, I'll always love you, blah, 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 blah. It was actually sort of rude because I didn't just come out and say it straight up to him, but just took that route of, I'll always love you, it doesn't matter what you're telling me, kind of thing. My mom, no clue. She stayed silent the entire time. We have barely talked about it. We're closer, though, because she did call me once when I was at a relative's house and say, if they bring it up and are cruel to you, call me and I'll come get you. And that was something that, like, the fact that she acknowledged it and was positive about it was very, very good for our relationship and good for me to hear. And my brother, I had apparently convinced him a year previous to telling him that I was not interested in women. And so it was a complete shock to him as well. And they've all had their different processes to deal with it. And we don't talk about it too much, but they all reacted in different ways. So that was my story.
I have like 2 or 3 stories I usually go with just because I enjoy them more than others, but I think I'll stick with the high school theme that's kind of going here tonight. In high school, I had a best friend, and his name was Joe, and everybody assumed we were dating, and we always knew that no, that wasn't really the case. So about the time, it was around, I think, senior prom, some girl had asked him out to the prom, and he was very hesitant. The girl was not someone we liked at all. She was kind of mean and snarky. We'll put that in a nice way since it's on camera. And I was like, oh, well, what did you say to her? And he said, I said I was going with you. And I was like, great. And then the next weekend, he came up to me in school and he said, oh, I have something I have to tell you. It's a great story. You have to hear it. And I was like, okay, I'm waiting. Tell me. He's like, no. I'll talk to you after school. So he aims me, because we were dorky like that, after school. And he's like, you'll never guess what I did this weekend. I was like, what did you do, Joe? After all this buildup, what could be so great? And he said, I went to a gay club down in Portland. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Why didn't you take me? And he's like, because it's for gay people. And I said, oh, that's cool. Why didn't you take me? So that was nice. We kind of had this like instant bond. We had always been really good friends, but now we were like part of the same community, I guess, and no one else knew about us. So it was a secret, kind of, but I'm sure everyone did know. They just preferred pretending like we were dating. I don't know, but yeah. And then we both came to the U of O together and came out together to our families and started participating in all the queer, awesome like organizations and events on campus. So it was good times.
So now what we'd like to do is open it up to questions. And again, you can ask any question that you'd like of the panelists. If any of the panelists doesn't feel like they can field it, then I will speak to the question. So does anybody want to start us out?
I'm still confused as to why gay marriage is illegal. It confuses me. I don't get it. I really don't. Why?
So still confused about why gay marriage is illegal. Do some of the panelists want to speak to that? Your thoughts and feelings? How about, do any of the panelists wish to get married?
I should have the same rights. I don't know. I know that in the home state that I'm from, it's very conservative, being Idaho, and it's actually been a law that you can never have marriage because they actually changed our state constitution, so it has to be between a man and a woman. And the main basis in that state for why it is illegal is because it's a largely religious state and conservative state, so they believe that it should be between a man and a woman. But they, parts of it, Northern Idaho, a lot of the universities have worked on partnership opportunities, not in the marriage sense, but in the sense that you'll have rights, you'll get insurance from, if your partner works at a university, you'll get the insurance, you'll get the benefits as well, things like that. So there are small progressions, but I can say I don't know why it's still illegal, but I know that in certain places they have their own reasons.
And I'd like to say I'm from California originally, and they did just pass a law so that it is legal to get married there for same-sex couples, which they're going to be fighting to keep come election. And I have a cousin who did get married and to her partner of 15 or 18 years, I think. And so it's really exciting and really frustrating. And there's a lot of people who have different opinions. I think there's fears, there's lack of information out there for some people. People don't always, some people are afraid that you let one person do something that you're not comfortable with and someone else is going to do something worse. Like it's a spiral effect. And I think that sometimes is what comes into it. I think there's religious views on marriage, and there's just a lot that goes into it for every person who's adding to this. And it's harder to fight something that hasn't been, trying to get something initiated that hasn't been around than to get rid of something that's always been there too. So that plays into it, that it just isn't there right now, or hasn't been.
I think another big thing is there's always the argument that church and state are separate entities. So like, I don't know, as an example, if anyone watched the VP debate, Biden, when he was asked if he supported civil rights for partnerships and, you know, gay people, he said yes, of course. But then when asked if he supported gay marriage, he said no, I do not, because marriage is defined as a church institution, and as a politician, he has no right over the church's laws. So if a church ever decided to marry same-sex partners, then that could be considered a marriage, whereas right now same-sex partners in a lot of states just can have like civil unions or benefits, domestic partnership agreement type things, where you know, they might have some of the same benefits as a marriage, but it won't ever be classified as a marriage because it's a church dogma, I guess.
So let's hear, yeah, go ahead.
Well, just following up on that question, I mean, maybe you don't know the answer to this, but like, people from lots of different religions get married in this country, so what if you belong to a church that is accepting of that? Would that still not be a marriage?
Sure. So the question was, if you belong to a religion that welcomes LGBT marriage, would you be able to be married in the United States?
In the sense that if you want to, like Jen was saying, that it's a kind of a religious thing, the actual act of marriage. So I'm actually Episcopal, and they condone same-sex partnerships, and I mean, so that would be that. But marriage in the sense, like, you can't get the same rights. Like, even now when there is marriage in California, it's still you only get the state rights. You can't file your federal taxes together. There are so many rights that you're still not getting. So it's not even, a lot of people put so much emphasis on the name, but a lot of, I mean, personally, like myself, like I don't really care about the name. Like, marriage has a different connotation for me anyways. It has a lot of different history with it. I just want the same rights. I want to be able to marry someone and have the same rights as anyone else. So, but I think it's comforting for some people to have a church that accepts it.
Other questions? Yes, Sasha.
So this might be a difficult question to answer, so you don't have to answer it, or if anybody has an answer. But a lot of your coming out stories I see were kind of positive. Does anybody have a struggling story that they'd like to share?
So does anybody have a coming out story that was not a positive experience?
I talked about my coming out story with sexuality, being attracted to women. I also have come out to a few of my closer friends as being genderqueer, which is not something I've talked to everyone about, but the few people that I've talked to, my responses have been pretty direct with people, not all of them, a couple very close friends saying, look at your body, you're female. Look at you do this, you're female. Like, I talk about it and they say, no, I'm going to call you by this pronoun. No, I'm going to see you as female, because that's what society decides, I guess. And so that part has been hard for me. I don't feel in danger. I just feel like they sort of disrespected me. Not sort of. They did disrespect me by saying, I'm not listening to your story. I'm not listening to your experience. I'm not listening to what's happening in your life. I'm going to decide for you based on what you look like to me. And so that would be one of my biggest struggles with coming out.
I think a struggle that I have is my mom has a family that lives in Tillamook and is very conservative and religious, and my mom passed away 15 years ago, so I really didn't have a relationship with them and still don't. And I think I don't choose to come out to this group of family. If I chose to be in their lives and they be in mine, then I would, but I don't have any contact with them. I'm not sure if it's because my mom passed away, I don't have a connection with them anymore, or I just don't like that side of the family too much, or if it's the coming out, I don't feel comfortable enough to come out to them, so I kind of keep them at bay. But if I were to come out to that side of the family, I think I would have very strong negative reactions. So to me, I don't feel like it's personally worth it to me to do that. If I was living in that town, seeing them a lot, definitely I would have to see what happened. But for me now, I live in a completely different area, but it does bother me a little bit that's kind of hanging over my head.
And I think that I'll share a story that, I work in LGBT education and sports services. It's a pretty queer job. My mother tells her friends that I work on campus as a social worker, which for the student life piece is a lot of what I do. I do a lot of case management and connecting students with resources, but I don't hear her sharing that other part of my life. And then when we're at home and we're joking, because we're a really sarcastic family, she calls what I do diversity crap. Like, how is the diversity crap that you're doing? So that's awesome. Other questions? Yes. We'll go you and then Remy. Oh, you're pointing.
Mine's probably a personal need for each person. How do you deal with, if you're very religious, if you're Christian, I believe that anyone who's lesbian, bi, gay, queer, any of that going to hell?
So maybe first, if panelists would feel comfortable talking about their religious background and how that does or does not inform their experience of their sexuality or gender identity.
Kind of like what struggle do they maybe possibly
Sure.
go through? Because I'm not, even though I'm actually straight, but I'm kind of curious. I thought about it a little bit.
Sure.
I can go. I grew up in a loosely religious family. I went to a church camp for 10 years. I was baptized, confirmed, all of that jazz. And and I was like an acolyte, all of that. I don't know, I think it really depends on each person. I grew up in a very faith-driven, not particularly religious-driven, and I've kind of just chosen a different path. But I mean, it really, I don't know if it depends so much on. It just depends on how your family grows with it and how you deal with it personally. Like with me, it was kind of a struggle, but at the same time, my church, in particular, it's Episcopal. We are known for the first gay bishop ever. There's been a lot of split with the church, so it's really, like you said, it's kind of a personal struggle with whoever goes through it. With me, I had trouble with it at first, but then, I met one of my first girlfriends I met at church camp, and then I've met a lot of people who I've met a lot of gay priests and different people from clergies that really find a good balance with that, and they find the fact that if you are a religious person and look at it, one of the teachings is always to love your neighbor and hate the sin, not the sinner. So even in I have friends that are from extremely conservative families, and even with their families, I think at times they demonstrate what can be considered the best Christian way in the fact that they accept their children still after they've come out to them. Some of my best friends are from extremely conservative families, and their parents will still accept them, and they still love them, and still talk to them, but they still just disagree with the choice that they made because they don't believe in it, and they believe it's a sin, but they haven't shut the person out, and so that's been easier for them. So I think it's all very based on like just yourself and how strong you are and your family and that. So
I kind of grew up Irish Catholic in that my mother's family was very Irish Catholic. They live right across the street from their church. She has 10 brothers and sisters, and they went to Catholic school from like 0 to 20 or however long they keep you in the church, I'm not sure. But that was in the Midwest, and my mother and father moved out here, and they kind of got away from their religious roots. I still had to go to church until I was about 10 or 11, but my mom, who is like my role model, is really great in that the first time I was ever at a service, and I think the priest was talking about abortion, and he said black and white, if you do this, you're damned, you're going to hell, this is the only way to be or to live your life. As soon as that happened, she stopped making us go to church. So I've always been a firm believer that you can be spiritual without being within the constraints of a doctrine. Like, you can live your life in a moral, honest, spiritual way without having to be indoctrinated by somebody that doesn't know you personally at all. So.
Very good way to put it. Thank you. Other thoughts? Let's go here, and then we'll go back there. Is there a strong transgender community on campus? So did you? Me and then you? Okay. So there's a number of support services for transgender folks on campus. There is a discussion group that often runs out of the LGBTQA, the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Alliance on the basement level of the EMU. It's a discussion group that runs out of there. The Counseling and Testing Center is going to be offering support for folks who are seeking sexual reassignment surgery or hormones. The Counseling Center would be willing to write letters to initiate that process for folks, and the Health Center, within its capacity, will be able to support students who are looking for those resources. There is a number of different celebrations that happen on campus through the LGBTQA. There's in the fall, there's Trans Week of Remembrance to commemorate the folks who have been victims of, who have been murder victims who in their lives identified as transgender and then died as a result or were targeted as a result of their identity. And then in the springtime, there's Trans Week of Celebration, where the LGBTQA sponsors this gigantic picnic and lots of fun events like a tea party, where it's the focus is on community building and pulling folks together. So there's a lot of really awesome stuff that's happening out of the student office, and then also some great things that are happening on policy levels. Also, very soon there's going to be, the campus maps where you can, online, where you can do an overlay where you can see all the fancy trees and flowers and things like that. There's going to be an overlay where you can see the gender inclusive restrooms here pretty soon. So.
There's also a great class that Lizzie Reese teaches in the Women in Gender Studies area, and it's transgender issues. And it's just a great class, and it gives you a lot of reading material, and she's a great teacher and knows a lot about the subject. So I think it's a 400 level class someday.
That's a great question. Yes?
Okay, nature versus nurture, or does it even matter?
Oh, great question. So nature versus nurture, what are your thoughts? So is sexual orientation or gender identity determined by nature or nurture?
Growing up, this is actually something, a question I thought a lot about, because my parents claim they knew since I was 5. But I also spent a lot of time growing up with my mother, because I didn't really have a strong connection with my father. So growing up and thinking about that nature versus nurture question, I would think, well, is it because I had such a close relationship with my mother and, you know, picked up these different attributes, and all these different questions were going through my head when I was coming out in high school and going through that process. In the end, to be honest, I don't know. I can't answer that question, but in my heart, I've got this hunch that you know, a lot of it does have to do with nature. So I'm sure you know, nurture leans and gives some credit to, you know, part of it, but I feel like a lot of it does come from nature.
I personally grew up in Idaho, so it's very hetero-driven, like everything. You don't really see, especially the areas that I was from, you don't really, like, there was like one gay couple and they owned like a sex store. Like, that's what I knew of gay culture. It was like, oh, it was just like kind of stereotypical, and just, I knew like that on some TV shows, sometimes there would be lesbians and they were like really butch. And so, I mean, if you're gonna go the nurture rate, like, I should not be gay. Like, with everything, like with my mom, the way I grew up with everything, like, I was pounded in to be the perfect little blonde, marrying a blonde, having lots of kids, soccer mom, and it's like, sure, I can still do that. It's just gonna be a blonde woman, probably, or whatever. So, I don't know. Personally, I'd have to say, like, I think maybe nature can play a part in it, like Ross said, like, it could play more of a part of like comfortable or what time in your life you can come out, but I believe it's a lot of nature, not nurture.
I identify as either bi or pansexual, depending on what mood I'm in. So I think the question's a little bit different for me. I can remember being 10 or 11 or whatever age it was and having my first crush on a boy and thinking, oh, he is marvelous. We are going to go get married and live together and grow old, and his sister should be there too. So I don't know if that's nature or nurture, but it's always been there. So you can call that whatever you want, but it's there.
It's there.
Other thoughts?
I was just wondering what pansexual meant.
Sure. What does the word pansexual mean?
Okay. Do you want me to feel that one since I used it?
Yeah.
So society generally dictates that there are 2 genders or sexes, but when you use the term pansexual, it's kind of recognizing that gender is a continuum and that you can be attracted to people that are in all sorts of different places on that continuum. So I'm not attracted to men or women, I'm attracted to people, I guess is kind of how I like to use the term.
Solid.
Yeah, in the back.
I have 2 different questions. Have you seen Queer as Folk, first of all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You really think that gay society or maybe society bi is really like that? Do you think they kind of over-dramatize it or anything like that? That's my first question.
So have you all seen Queer as Folk? Do you feel like it emulates real life, queer life?
I feel like it's over-dramatized. I mean, no one goes out every single night, and you know, I can't say that for sure. But you guys, I shouldn't say that. Okay, how do they go out every single night? It looks so tiring to me. I don't know.
It's possible.
Okay. I think it's a little bit over. Yeah, it's a little too much. A little over the top. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's written to be a show that people watch, a show that, you know, that gathers ratings in some ways. So part of it is, you know, Showtime's requirement to do it over the top, to over-exaggerate a little bit so that people tune in and watch, not just the gay community. But I also feel there are specks of truth in there. Watching through the 4th and 5th seasons, they really tried to cover some issues that were Sure, they were trying to cover some issues in the community. There was this one particular episode I remember where
7:52.
Shut up. Okay.
I watched it with
So this is a safe
You probably
space for queer as folk
Sorry.
watching.
Sorry. We can continue if we want. Does anyone else want to fill in your question?
I am interested in your thoughts.
Yeah.
Ross.
Okay.
Continue with
All right.
queer as folk.
So there was this one particular episode that addressed an issue of a young gay male feeling like he was a particular outsider. He started flirting with an older man, a professor, who had done a lot of writing on being HIV positive. And they get to the climax of the problem, and it turns out that the young male wanted the professor to have unprotected sex with him so that the young man would would become HIV positive. And he had learned that there's this ritual where you really feel free if you're infected, so you don't have to worry about it anymore, and put this really interesting spin on becoming HIV positive and how it was actually a good thing to the community, so you didn't have to worry. And really, it really just threw me because I had never heard that before. I had never heard anyone talk about that, but I did some research on it. It was actually a legitimate issue in small sects of different gay communities. And I felt like that in the latter seasons of that show, they really did try to bring forward some of some real unknown gay issues to their broader community. So I really felt like they really were trying to put some educational pieces in there.
Thank you, Russ. That's awesome.
I was just going to go from the other side, the L word, as opposed to the queer as folk. A lot of people have issues with that because they're all very feminine, high power, like high job women. They're you don't see very many butch women, but like it is supposed to be a group of women in LA, and it isn't supposed to, they can't represent everyone. And like Ross was saying, these shows are meant to, there's a lot of people are watching them. They make money off of these shows. They can't always address issues. But like Queer as Folk, the L Word does a really good job of addressing issues. And they actually did a good job of addressing trans issues and how sometimes it's a really, they're really pulled out of the group and they're ostracized from the group. And it did a good job of showing that and really addressing it. And I know it was good for me, and I mean, it's a silly show, but at the same time, it was wow, seeing it in a different perspective was wow, that does happen. I really want to become more of an ally and more inclusive of different parts of the LGBTQA and not just be super focused on just woo, lesbians. Is really they're silly shows, but they do drive home good points.
So to speak a little bit more to that idea, the folks who have in my life who have been born female and then decide to transition to identify as male. A lot of times when they bring this new identity back to these all-women spaces that they've grown up in and sort of grown their queer identity in, they're met with resistance. Well, now you want to be a boy, this is an all-women space and you're not welcome here. And the L Word does a great job of representing sort of what's true for the women in that space and what's true for the new man in that space. So that's a great point. In the back.
What are some common misconceptions that you guys would like to clear up, something you got before?
Oh, so what are some common misconceptions of LGBT communities that you would like to clear up?
The promiscuity, that happens, but I myself, I don't know. I think that's kind of annoying. I think that's one of the things that a lot of groups try and push on it, and gay people are horrible, that group's horrible because they just sleep with everyone and they don't care about anything. And it's just that's not the case in everything. A lot of people in college sleep with everyone. It's not really my issue. I don't know. I think that's a big thing. And for me personally, I have short hair now, but I've always had really long blonde hair. And I remember, I've always just wanted to try it short, and I just cut it short. And my sister and I did it because we never really look alike. And my mom was really hesitant. She cut her hair first because I was still overseas at a job, and I came back and then I wanted to cut my hair, and my mom was really hesitant. She loved my sister's hair, but because I was gay, she thought people would be weirder towards me because I cut my hair short. And it was this weird thing where some people were like, oh, you cut your hair short because you're gay. And it was no, I wanted to cut my hair short because my sister and I got matching cuts, so we look sort of alike. It's something completely different, and I didn't like that people thought that I was trying to outwardly identify more and be more gay, when it was just it's something really stupid, and people were putting so much onto it. When it's if you get your hair cut, my sister got her hair cut, no one cared, she just looks cute. But I thought that was hard. Stupid.
Bisexuality is not a stop on the way to Gay Town.
Tell me more about that.
A lot of times in like queer communities or really like lesbian spaces, I guess, if you identify as bi, there's this stereotype that, oh, you're really going to end up with a man, or you're confused, or you just don't want to come out all the way, or you're just doing it for the attention. Lots of different things that really aren't true.
It's also possible for members of the LGBTQ community to also have these misconceptions about our own community. In high school, actually, with that very reference about bisexually, I like that, bisexually is not a stop on the way to Gay Town. That was actually my misconception. A lot of people, when I was going through my coming out stages, I identified as bisexual for 2 months because that's kind of where I felt comfortable in the slow move towards it, and it just kind of became internalized that became a truth for me. And it was really only until last year that I realized that there really were that bisexuality really was its own identity. So it is possible for members of our own community to have those misconceptions as well. I guess one more thing I wanted to throw onto the pile is on stereotypes. Most people are going to have stereotypes about any kind of given community, and the challenge, I guess, is that even if a member of that community is outside of those stereotypes, people, instead of breaking that mold of their stereotype, people are just going to view them as the exception. So it's very hard to break a stereotype and to break someone's view of a stereotype because all they're really going to do is view you as the exception to the rule. So I guess that's been one of the difficulties within many different misconceptions, because even if we don't act a certain way, if we don't fit that stereotype completely, people could walk up to us and see one or two things that fit their stereotype and then just fill in the rest of the list with who we are and what we are without even talking to us.
Going a little bit off of what Ross said, if you do meet someone who is identifying as part of the queer community, and they tell you one thing, that does not make it true for the whole community. There are a lot of people who will speak for the community, and it's not. Everyone's an individual, and really any stereotype I've ever heard has been broken down with everyone that I meet, whether it be queer community, ability, race, gender, class, whatever it is. They get broken down. You can listen to it and hear it for their experience, but that's their experience, not everyone else's. So I don't have a specific one, just in general, take what you hear as that person's experience, whether they're putting in those words or someone else, or in the words of a larger group.
Oh, I saw one. Yes.
This might be for people that aren't certain. How did you find out that you were LGBTQ?
Sure. So the question was, how did you find out that you were LGBTQA?
I guess going back to my high school story, this boy that I saw in the hallway, this was over a course of 6 months. I saw him and I just couldn't understand why I kept staring at him, why I always was really excited to see him. And at first I was like, maybe it's because I'm jealous, maybe it's because I want to be friends with him, I don't know. Why do I keep staring at him? And really it really took about 6 months, and I was actually seeing like a counselor every other week, kind of talking things out and going through it, and it really took quite a while for me to figure out I'm staring at this guy because I think he's really cute and because I want to get to know him, and maybe because I'm gay. That was, for me personally, that's how I came to it.
I made out with a lot of girls. I don't know what else to say.
Sorry.
Say it like it's past tense.
Shut up.
I think mine's the opposite of yours, Jen. Like trying to make out with guys and just being like, yeah. So,
Why does this suck?
yeah. Yeah.
I grew up in a very Catholic house and Catholic community, and Catholic school, K through 8. And I had an idea from at least 7th or 8th grade that I liked women. In 6th grade, I passed everything off as, well, I'm looking at the body because I'm female and seeing how mine goes against that. Everyone looks at other people's bodies, kind of a thing. Didn't think much of it. Started to question it. Questioned it for years. And I am attracted to men occasionally. So I did have a lot of question around it. And what it came down to was I continued to be extremely attracted to females and gender variant people, as well as people came into my life, and was able to ended up kissing females and in a relationship and stuff, and it fit, so it was just, I sort of knew it, but everyone's telling you, well, it's not true unless it's proven, kind of thing. So from my experience, I had a lot of question around it until I was actually in those spaces, and I was like, yeah, how did I ever question this? So, yeah.
Sorry. I was gonna.
I love Star Wars. I loved it, and I didn't know why. I would watch it over and over and over, and it was when the new ones came out. And then the second one came out, and I loved it even more. And I would watch it, and like randomly, it came to me that I thought Natalie Portman was so hot. And then I was like, oh, I'm gay. I was just like,
Star Wars?
yeah, yep. Now I don't really like it that much.
Yes, I will share that I was 7 years old. We had just moved to Hawaii. I was a military kid, and we were at the Polynesian Cultural Center. And it was this sort of tour of different dances from islands in Polynesia. And the Tahitian ladies came out. And I don't know a lot about the significance of this dance, and my intention is not to exoticize the dance. But when I was 7, I remember thinking, oh, no. And I have recently just recovered a photo album from that time in my life, and there are many, many photo montages dedicated to the Tahitian dance from when I was 7. That's when I knew. Yes, I'll go here and then here.
Have you ever felt like you have to censor yourself or the way you speak or any of your actions for any opportunity or job, or maybe entering a new space or a city or something?
So have you ever felt like you had to censor your sexual orientation or gender identity when you're coming into a new space, meeting new people, coming to a new job?
I think definitely when you're traveling, I feel like if you're, if I have a partner, holding hands is not always appropriate in every culture. So I definitely try not to hold hands if I'm nervous about the area, if I don't know if it's gay friendly or not. So I try to be aware of where I am and not overdo the PDA.
I definitely have different outfits that I've kind of like assigned as quote unquote normal or not overly flamboyant. As far as other qualities and personalities when I go into a space, I might talk softer as to keep the I guess the over feminine voice, lisp, whatever you might call it, to an unnoticeable level. In my babysitting job, the mother would prefer that her children not know that I'm gay, so different things in my car, different things that I wear have to be passed off as something that anyone would do, at my age. But as far as actually really identifying as straight, the only time I had to do that, I'm sorry, I'm going to share a really quick story. Last year, me and my 3 best friends thought it would be really, really funny if they dressed up as my hoes and I was the pimp. And I had to be a straight pimp for the evening, and it's hard. So
he pulled it off.
Some of the guys outside were trying to show me how to walk and how to talk and how to use my hand gestures or keep my hands down, and I really got it. I really nailed it. I had this hat on, I had some glasses and a wife beater, and some of my really close friends I went up to and started hitting on, and they thought I was serious, and they were telling me to back off and going in their purse with their pepper spray. I had to take off my hat and glasses, like, no, it's me. And so that was the one time I did it, but it's hard. It's really difficult to do.
That was an interesting costume. I worked on a military base this summer, and as a lot of you know, it's a don't ask, don't tell policy. I was a contracted worker, so that doesn't apply to me, but it's still very much so part of the just the community there. So it took a long time. I worked as a swim instructor, so I was working with children as well, and with communities that already aren't very open to homosexuality. A lot of times one of the stereotypes is upsettingly, it's just that like pedophile goes with gay. So I was really hesitant to ever say anything about that. I came out to my coworkers, which was fine, but still never really in general on base. Also, just like, I mean, it's definitely like you were saying, like there's places where you just don't know if it's safe, and with working with hundreds of single sailors, I didn't really think it would be appropriate to just spread that news. Just in, like, I mean, you never really know. So, and then I also had another job in Idaho where there's still no security. There's no law saying that you can't be fired for your sexual orientation or identity, like how you show your identity. So some states have that included and some don't. So I didn't really feel comfortable talking about it because I could be fired and there's nothing I could do about it. So.
You might not be able to tell, but I have no filter between here and here. So I find myself accidentally coming out all the time. Like I'll be having new roommates move into a house I'm living in, and we're all cooking dinner, like the first dinner together as roommates, and I'll be like, yeah, this one time I was down in San Francisco Pride, and this girl was like, whoa, and I'm like, oh wait, by the way, I'm gay. And so I don't ever really censor myself, just because it's impossible for me to. I can't do it. I've tried.
Why would you want to censor that?
Why would you? I don't know. I'm awesome.
Yeah.
I think you should go.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Go for it.
Oh, all right. Over the presidential campaign, at one point Barack Obama was speaking to a queer organization and was asked about gay marriage, and he said he supported civil unions, and the response from this organization member was that to his organization, civil unions sounded like separate but equal. And that was a brand new concept to me. I was wondering if that's, like you, one of you had said, just that person from that organization, or if that is something that kind of occurred, that has occurred to you, that you think there is kind of similarities in these two situations.
So when you're thinking about civil unions versus marriage, do you believe that is like or carries the same historical connotations as separate but equal policies?
If I remember correctly, separate but equal was always separate but not ever quite equal. So that's kind of why it was taken away. And I think that in a sense that's what they're saying, and what we talked about when we talked about if we liked marriage or not, is that, or civil unions or things that are happening now, is that even in the states where marriage is an option now, it is in no way equal. You're not getting any of the same, you're not getting any of your federal rights. So I think a lot of it is that it wants like equality, if anything. Like, yes, it's separate, and yes, that's an issue that a lot of people are dealing with. But I think the forefront of everything that a lot of people are working for is just equal rights, one for one. We would like the same thing. That's what I would like. So.
Yeah, that's certainly the first time I've heard that, but it makes sense why the person of that community said it that way and used that term. For me personally, I'm just on board for the same equal rights, even if they are separate. But and right now they're not equal at all. So when I get married, I'm still going to call it getting married, even if there's a whole new term for it, even if there's a whole new slang for it, even if it's not technically not called marriage. If it's equal rights, then it's equal rights.
There are a couple countries where marriage is a word that refers to religious ceremonies, and civil unions is something where you get connected at the state level. And in those countries, what researchers are finding is that a lot more folks are going for these kind of secular civil union marriages over the religious ceremonies. In these countries, they're the same. So that might be one solution to the difference between the two. Yeah.
I'm wondering what are some of the obstacles for the LGBTQ community for like adopting kids and starting like a family?
So what are some of the obstacles around adoption and starting a family for LGBT folks? Or when you start thinking about starting a family, what are some concerns that you have?
Well, I think in my opinion, personally, it's a very expensive process for two women to have in vitro if that's the route they choose. It just doesn't happen on accident when it's two women. So I think there's a lot of medical and science involved, which is just mind-boggling to me. That there's it's a huge undertaking, and what was my thought process with that? In adoption, there's lawyers, and there's just I feel like, in my opinion, gays and lesbians that have children, they are very, very much wanted because the process, legal and medical, to have them come into our lives is extensive.
I feel like on top of the money issue, I feel like we're also expected to be the most upstanding citizen. I feel like just in some of the articles that I've been reading, they really just go through you, with a fine tooth and comb, seeing what are you as a couple ready to take on a child, in almost an unfair manner. Whereas I feel like a heterosexual couple would not encounter all those same barriers that approach them, even money set aside.
Another big issue is insurance. A lot of cases, domestic partnerships aren't recognized under different insurance claims. So if one partner has insurance and the other one doesn't, or the children are under the other partner's name, you can't get coverage for your partner and your dependents. So that's also a big block to raising children.
And just like state to state, if you can actually adopt a child, like if your partner, perhaps like you were saying, in vitro with women, the one who has the child is given, it's going to be the mother, but then the other one then has to go through a process, and it's different for each state on how you can adopt and be a second parent, and like some states don't even allow it. I think Florida still doesn't allow second partner gay adoption. So I mean, that's a huge thing. You're not going to legally be the parent, and that's the same with hospitals. You can't visit them. There's a lot of things that you can't be involved in then.
I think another piece that this brings to mind, a couple of friends of mine just recently made a baby. The lesbian couple, best friend in the whole wide world, gave material toward making the baby happen. And what they found out from their lawyers is that this process could get them thrown in jail for practicing medicine without a license. One of the funny things that my mom says when we talk about this is that she feels like she's practiced medicine without a license a lot of times with her heterosexual partners, and that isn't fair, that there's that.
That's horrible. I didn't know that. What's that? So that is horrible that it's not practicing. Mm.
No turkey basters were medical instruments.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Other questions?
I need to stop talking.
One back there.
I like
Go for
that.
it.
On this interesting article about how gay males are expected to have certain material objects in their possession. I was wondering if that goes the same for every single LGBTQ person.
Sure. So the question was that in an article, somebody read that gay men were supposed to have a certain material possession on their.
Any just like very, very expensive things.
Oh, okay. That gay men are supposed to have expensive things. Do folks experience that there are cultural norms around how expensive somebody's clothes or somebody's items should be? And is this, well, what do folks think?
I think we live in a very materialistic, consumer-driven culture in general. I don't think that can just apply to queer people. Just everyone has pressures to look a certain way or have the coolest clothes or have fancy stuff. I don't know. Could be me.
There's, in Eugene, some of the students that I work with call themselves part of the A-gays. And the A-gays are people who dress in labels and have all sorts of material possessions and should have fancy cars and things like that. And so I do think that people, even in Eugene, experience this sort of pressure to fit a certain part in some communities. And I know that in my experience, with women's spaces here, that there's pressure to recycle, pressure to like have a certain natural herbal knowledge. I see a lot of that, and that there's a lot of cultural dialogue back and forth about that, and it's hard to like maintain conversation if you're not a part of that.
Yeah. I would agree.
For anyone that's pansexual, do you believe that you have a soulmate, or that you're like gonna get married to one person? Did you ever see yourself?
Ooh, so do y'all believe in soulmates? Will you be married to one person?
Well, I also wanted to, I thought you were speaking because you had the mic, but I also wanted to ask a clarifying question to you. You said pansexual, but do you also mean polyamorous?
I don't even know what that means.
Because pansexual doesn't necessarily imply that you believe in having multiple partners, whereas polyamorous could be you have, multiple partners. It basically means like multiple loves is what the word means. So they're two different identities.
Maybe I just meant because you're attracted to males and females.
Oh,
You
okay.
feel like you had
My soulmate. We're not dating. No. We joke. Sorry. I didn't want her girlfriend to get mad at me, so I had to make that known.
I think that's a question everyone asks themselves. I don't really know if that's a queer thing. I think everyone at some point wants a soulmate, wants to know that there's someone out there, or wants to question if there's someone out there. I mean, it could be a man or woman for Jen. I think maybe she questions that. I don't know. I know that I don't know. I know when I was little, I was like, I don't know, maybe. I think it's interesting to pose it as a question just as a pansexual or as a queer question, but I think it's a pretty broad and general question.
I don't know that I don't think I believe in soulmates, but I believe that you can be in love with one person or multiple people for the rest of your life after you meet them. Like, I think that is definitely very possible. Not necessarily that you are destined to meet them, or somewhere out there there's someone that once you meet you'll be together, but that you can be in love with people and stay with them forever. And I am attracted to people across the board, so that the pansexual does answer that question.
Nice. Oh, I was just going to talk about polyamory for just a moment. I have 2 friends that have been together for 21 years, and in their relationship, they also have girlfriends, and their relationship is like, I had never been exposed to it until I came to Eugene. Or I shouldn't say not exposed to it, I've never been exposed to it to that extent, to someone being together for 21 years and then also having girlfriends and partners on the side. I wouldn't say on the side, as well, in addition to, sorry. It really is a strong relationship. Like, I have never seen anything like it. They are absolutely in love and absolutely happy in their lifestyle. It works so great. And I think it's, like, I had no preconceived ideas about it, but actually being exposed to it was really eye-opening and just a great experience.
Since our society kind of assumes that guys like girls and girls like guys, how do you like find people that you like, and just how do you know that they like you back, or you know?
Do you have a hand sign? You just like throw it out. Like, what? I thought you were doing the thing.
So the question was, how do you meet other people? To date.
Why are you asking?
What is this dating thing?
Yeah.
I think it's the same way that most people do it. Not just a gay community related thing, but the way people interact with each other. You look across the room and you see someone, and you look down when they look over at you, and you kind of look back up to see if they're still looking at you, and you have a bit of an eye contact, go over and start chatting with them. It could be between 2 guys or 2 girls or a man and a woman. It just, attraction is attraction, and generally you can tell when you like someone or when someone likes you back, or when something's going to start up. And even if it just rolls into a friendship, maybe it's happened to me where I find out someone I really like is actually straight, and we continue on the friendship. But you never know until you meet someone. In these days, and especially being a gay male, trying to shed stereotypes of the gay community and of others, really the best way to get to know someone and to see what sexuality they are is to talk to them and to get to know them, and sometimes get to the point where you ask. So yeah.
I just kind of flirt shamelessly with everybody, and then I'm kind of surprised when someone actually responds. Like, whoa, what's that? You're not supposed to smile back at me. That's weird.
I don't know, yeah, like what Ross said, but it is a smaller pool, so I get what you're trying to aim at with that question. It's a little harder sometimes. I definitely even go to the stereotypes, like I'll look at people and I'm like, oh, they must be gay. Totally not. But it's just like one of those things, like, I don't know. I think I like saw someone about, the girl that I'm dating now, like I saw her a bunch, and then I like talked to her once, and I was just like, and then I'm such a product of our generation. I like Facebooked her, and it didn't say what sex, like who she was interested in, so I was like, whatever, and then we just started hanging out, and then it just like, it's just like Ross said, like, you just have your weird college ways of doing it.
Yeah. The direct answer to your question is definitely Facebook stalking. That's the way to go.
If they don't have an interested in, you've got a better chance. Yeah.
That's actually generally true.
Yeah.
Most straight men will say interested in women, and men that aren't so sure won't put anything, and then you just kind of roll into it.
Literally.
I'm actually going to say that I think internet has killed all romance in the world.
You're a couple years older than us. It's okay. Just kidding.
I think that most recently, the partner that I was just with most recently went by my desk at work, saw that I was listening to salsa, and said, "Oh, you like salsa? I like to go to salsa." And then adorable.
Yeah, we're geeks too.
I think oh, sorry. That's okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, do you ever have to deal with, like, straight people of the opposite, whatever, who come up to you and start hitting on you? Is that ever kind of awkward?
So do you find yourself being hit on by straight people ever?
You know, I worked in an emergency room for many years, and yes, there, but no, not typically, but only very intoxicated people, like on a Saturday night in the emergency room when I was at work. Yeah, but other than that, not so much.
Oh, I lived on a Navy base, and they're single sailors, so whew, you can't. They just hit anything that looks like a girl. But it was odd. I just like, no, back off. We just ended up calling it sneak attack because they just go for it. Yeah, like cougars. Yeah, little Navy men. So, it's odd.
Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences where straight men have very blatantly shown their attraction to me. So it's definitely happened throughout my life a lot, and not very wanted necessarily. So yeah.
I mean, I'll say that I've dated a lot of men who identify as trans, who also identify as straight. Oh ho.
That's very tricky. To follow up on that, how have you? It seems to be funny in our society, and maybe just because I'm surrounded by a lot of immature college guys, but it's generally accepted as funny for guys to act out the stereotypical gay man. And have you guys encountered that, and how is like that? What is your immediate reaction to that, and how do you talk to them about it? Do you say how do you deal with that?
So if we see somebody playing out an exaggerated stereotype of somebody who is queer, how do we interrupt that?
Or how do you react?
How do you react?
I'm shy by nature, so if it's offensive to me, I try to think of it as more of an insecurity thing. I'm naturally flirtatious and very social in public because my shyness is an insecurity with me. So it's kind of like you throw it back around. So they may act the homosexual stereotypes in public because secretly they're insecure about their own sexuality. And generally what I found is for most men who really are trying to be offensive with that stereotype, with that acting out, it's because of an insecurity.
I've personally been guilty of that, actually. My freshman year, I hung out with a lot of gay men, and we would always joke around, and they would go to like flamboyant extremes in a joking way, and then I would too, and then I would realize maybe me going fabulous is not really okay because I don't identify like that. So I've definitely tried to curb my own actions in the hopes that, people will do as I say and what I do. Does that make sense? I don't know how the expression goes, but yeah.
I have friends who will try and basically act like a stereotype of queer community, and some of them, if it's in a private space where I know we're all friends and I've had conversations with them, I know their actual thoughts. I know what they actually believe. I don't usually interrupt. I don't usually join in either, but they know my stance and I know how they actually feel and what they believe, not thinking that they're just believing what they're acting out. If it's people I don't know, I'm still very hesitant to approach them, regardless of if I feel offended, which is rare that I actually get very offended, but I have fears around doing that because I don't know how people will react. And if it's someone that I'm starting to get to know, then I'll question them about it and see what they're actually thinking. Because I think sometimes, a lot of the time people do realize what they're doing by enforcing that stereotype by acting it out, but sometimes people don't even think about it that way. And I've had people change their minds and really think about what they're doing and how their actions are being viewed by me bringing it up. So I try and have that conversation with people when I don't know their stance.
On that note, my aunt the other day was describing a coworker that she had just met and absolutely loves him, and she did her hand and I said, now, does he do that with his hand? And she's like, no. I said, so what is this? And she said, well, you know. And I said, no, I don't know, you know. And so she said, well, and I said, he's effeminate? And she's like, yes, he's effeminate. I said, okay, then you can say effeminate. And then the conversation just went on. But it just was a lack of knowledge of using an old gesture for not knowing the word or not thinking about it, which, you know, I just politely changed the gesture into a word. Now she can use the word effeminate, hopefully, and not a gesture.
So we'll go last question from Erin.
Last question, that's a little pressure. I was wondering how you guys feel, especially in our society now, where it's like hot for girls to kiss, like two straight girls to kiss for male attention. I was wondering how you, like Katy Perry's "I Kissed a Girl" song, I find highly offensive.
Yeah.
I was wondering how you guys folks felt about that kind of attention-seeking act in our society.
So how do folks feel about the attention that folks who are straight identified, or women in particular who are straight identified who kiss, the kind of attention that they get? How do folks feel about that?
I feel like what people want to do is what they want to do, but I don't want them to disrespect me and start like kissing me to just be like, well, by the way, I'm not actually interested, if they express interest to get me in that position, kind of a thing. So respect, basically. Honesty kind of thing is what I like. But people can do what they want, generally. I mean, I don't think it's right to say you can't kiss another girl if you want to, whatever that reason is.
I just don't like the repercussions it has. Like, the other day I was walking with my girlfriend and we were holding hands, and like, I have never been yelled at as much as that happened, and it was just like cat calls from guys the entire time and like, oh, why are you doing that? And it's just like, I don't like that that's what has formed around it. Like, someone was like, ooh, you're just doing that for like, someone even said something like that, and it was like, no, she's my girlfriend. Like, it's just like, I don't like what it builds around that people assume that that if there are lesbians walking around campus that they're doing it to be funny or they're doing it to like get attention. But yeah, I'm definitely on the page with you. Like, I don't care who people kiss. It's just annoying that a Katy Perry song makes it seem like
it's trendy.
Yeah, that it's trendy, yeah. And like it was really weird seeing like 12-year-olds run around singing it. Yeah, we were talking about. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird. It's put a weird spin on it, like trying to be accepting of queer, but also kind of not, because it's like, oh, it's okay to kiss girls, but not to actually be gay in that sense. I don't like that right. Spin that it puts on it.
And the tune is pretty catchy, but she does have a line that she hopes her boyfriend doesn't care, and that's just like, oh, brother.
Yeah.
But I guess it's none of my business if two straight girls are kissing in cute little outfits. The video is pretty cute, but
pillow fights,
but yeah,
holding cats.
Yeah, but I think it's just, you know, it is. I don't know. I guess you just have to let it go on that one for me.
So up here, I have a couple of different resources on your chairs. There should have been a little flyer for Queer Skate. That is going to be not this Thursday, but next Thursday. And there's going to be shuttles that'll leave from campus. I also have some resources if you're wanting to know more about how to be an ally or other resources on campus or in the Eugene area. I have flyers, and they'll be here. If you want to become a panelist or have a panel come to your residence halls or your community organization, we're happy to do that. Just email bridges1@uoregon.edu. And then I want to give the panelists a huge round of applause. And next week is Coming Out Week. You should join the Facebook group. And wanted to also say thank you to Housing for having us.
Thank you.